Hello, my name's Louise Lónan, and I'll be sharing a few things about myself. How'd you get into music? I think that music has been a pretty big part of my life for as long as I can remember, whether it was, singing to songs on the radio or spontaneously creating my own songs. It's just been something that I've always enjoyed. I think my first spark to starting creating my own music was for my birthday when I was a little kid. My parents got me a keyboard, and I couldn't play it very well, but I really just enjoyed fiddling around on it, whether it was like playing random chords or just random notes. Eventually I started making my own little songs. They weren't anything deep or like truly moving. They were just usually things that were on my mind at the time, but I really enjoyed making them. I continued doing that for a bit, and then I think around middle school I was exposed to my first DAW, being a garage band, which I think is a lot of people's beginner DAWs, and once again I would just fiddle around, see what sounds I could make. Sometimes I'd come up with a song, but most of the time I would just take stuff from Apple loops and place them together and see what sounded good. Eventually I started getting a bit more serious with GarageBand by recreating some of my favorite songs that I would hear either on the radio or on YouTube, and that was mostly because I couldn't afford to buy songs on Apple Music or iTunes, and sometimes if the song was obscure enough, they just weren't on those platforms anyway. At first I would recreate the songs by memory, just because I love to give myself a little bit of a challenge, and then eventually I started getting a bit more detail-oriented on how I wanted the song to sound, and so I'd listen to the song and then recreate it bit by bit as best as I could. Similarly with the keyboard, I started once again venturing out and trying to make my own music, either by using Apple loops, but now also starting to implement some MIDI stuff as well. And it wasn't the best sounding, but at the time I was pretty proud of it. What kinds of music do you enjoy listening to? I watched a lot of anime as a kid, and thanks to that I really got into listening to a bunch of different kinds of Japanese music. I also enjoy listening to musical theater as well as electro swing. One musical I enjoy a lot is Hadestown. I've always liked Greek mythology as well as just mythology from any culture, and I also adore the idea of, fusing two different concepts to create something new, so Hadestown has always been one of my favorites. I also had the pleasure of seeing one of the touring casts, and just being there in the theater is like a whole nother experience versus just listening to it in your headphones. And the songwriting itself is just gorgeous to me, so it's definitely one of my favorites. So, what is your music project? My music project is called Anthara. It's a story that leans into musical theater, folk music, and the joys of storytelling. The story is inspired by the 19th century, with a lot of inspiration coming from Victorian England. While the story is focusing on different perspectives, it mainly focuses on four main characters: Ernest, Edwin, Florence, and Lavinia, and their changing view of the world as they discover the magic and secrets that are hidden within. Our main character, Ernest, is an aspiring writer who yearns for his voice to be heard. Edwin, who is Ernest's best friend and potential love interest, is learning to navigate himself and his feelings with support from his friends that his parents never gave him. Florence is a young revolutionary seeking to make positive change for practitioners of witchcraft and her family. Lavinia is a woman who is haunted by her childhood trauma and is stuck coping in unhealthy ways. The entire story is told by an entity I play called the Blackbird, or Louise. Louise is the personification of storytelling. As such, Louise goes by any pronouns and can take many different forms. Louise takes the stories and the many different adventures that our main characters go through and brings them to our world so we can observe and learn along with the characters. What's your favorite song from the project so far? While I don't have many songs out at the moment, one of my favorites would have to be the song Edwin, which shares the name with one of the characters. The song is sung from Edwin's point of view and talks about his feelings that he has for Ernest. Edwin's entire arc is him working through his feelings for Ernest while also trying to figure out ways to navigate the world, which his parents never prepared him for. I see a lot of myself in Edwin, and he's one of my favorite characters just because of our similarities. While these terms don't exist in Onthara, Edwin is meant to be a gay asexual, and not only does he have to figure out his feelings for his best friend, but also understand his asexuality as well. Edwin places a lot of pressure on himself to be this perfect, functioning member of society, especially because his parents didn't really give him that proper guidance when he was growing up. I relate to this a lot as someone who's also trying to find their way in the world. Sometimes I have good days, and other times I have bad days, and it's a little bit of a challenge to not beat myself up over these little minor failures. It's a journey that Edwin and I are going on together, and while it's a long journey, I do see the light at the end of the tunnel. What are your inspirations? As mentioned previously, I tend to take a lot of inspiration from the music that I listen to, being J-pop, musical theater, and folk music. A lot of the songs that you hear on the radio are mostly pop songs, and while I do enjoy pop, I've always had a love for musical theater, especially when it comes to just performing. My musical background also leans more towards the theater side, so I thought it would be fun to bring that part that I love so much into my music and into my work. This would be seen through the character voices or some of the musical choices that I make in my writing. I have yet to have a live performance, but I'd also like to bring that theatrical element into my live performances as well. I confess it might also be a little bit self-indulgent, since I've always wanted to perform on Broadway. However, like any entertainment industry, Broadway can be very, very competitive, so I thought if I can't go to Broadway, I can bring Broadway to me. Along with theater, mythology and just stories from all over the world also influence my work. Many of the characters that you'll meet in Onthara and some of the musical elements also reference some of the different cultures that I'd like to touch upon. What's your songwriting process? In general, I get my ideas from the media I consume, whether it be movies, books, or music. I also get ideas sometimes by just existing in the world and observing others. In regard to my project, I try and make a story outline of each chapter and the arc I want the characters to go through. Right now, we're in the prologue, and I'm currently working on chapter 1, which I'm very excited about. What challenges do you face? A few roadblocks I'm experiencing at the moment are writing and creating content on a budget, as well as the trials of social media. Because I'm an independent artist, I don't really have a team yet, and everything is done by myself. The music, production, art, and story. This can make it a little hard when trying to grow a fan base. For many, higher budget content does a lot better than low budget content does. And even when I can put something together, the constant push to create makes it get lost in a sea of videos. I also don't always have time or energy to create videos, so burnout happens quite a lot. I do hope one day that with hard work and perseverance, I can create my own team and make the music I want to in my vision. It's a long road, but I do believe that I'll get there. How would you handle performance anxiety? back when I was younger, I used to get very, very nervous when performing. And I've noticed over time that with each performance and more exposure to the audience, as well as learning more about my presence on stage, I've become a bit more confident and less nervous each time. I think what helps me perform at my best is seeing that my audience is enjoying my performance and my music. I think this also ties into musical theater as well, where a lot of times the actors want a reactive audience and they want the audience to be engaged, and if they're not, it can make the show a little bit unbearable. What do you hope to accomplish 1 year from now? I would really love to be able to perform my very first show in character with my songs. Whether it be a smaller audience or a more medium-sized audience, it would just be such a treat to be able to show the world the things that I've been working on and the things that I look forward to working on in the future. I've also been a fan of whimsical things, and as I mentioned before, musical theater, so being able to show that part of myself and spread more whimsical joy to others just makes me feel really happy. And I also hope to be able to inspire others as well, whether it be other queer folk or other folk musicians, whatever it may be. I would love to be a beacon of inspiration for someone. And hey, a lot can happen in a year, so who knows? Do you have any dream collaborations? I actually have 3 people that I would love to collaborate with, that being Aurora, Rebecca Sugar, and Keith from the Yalukar project. From what I've seen of Aurora's music as well as her interviews, she's always herself, and she's never afraid to be herself, even in the face of like opposition and people pushing against her. She still tries to stay as genuine as possible, and I think that's really great to see, especially from an artist, because I feel like a lot of times people grow up in a world where if you are weird or if you are different, that's seen as wrong and you have to hide that part of yourself. And so seeing that like someone isn't doing that and they're thriving and trying to live the best life that they can live, it's just really inspiring. For Rebecca Sugar, I've always loved their work in Adventure Time, as well as Steven Universe and Fiona and Cake. And I just love the way that they approach songwriting, and it reminds me of my own songwriting in a way, where even if the message might not be like as deep, or the words might not be as poetic, or the voice might not be as fluttery and pretty that day, it's still genuine and coming from the heart. And I think that's the most important thing at the end of the day. And honestly, I'm down for whatever, whether it would be writing a song together or just voicing one of the characters that they've created. It would just be an honor to work with them. For Keith, I just love seeing their approach to storytelling, especially when it comes to including music in that storytelling. As someone who, again, comes from that musical theater background, it's really neat to see a sort of unique approach to music in that way, where you have these characters, you have this world, and while it's not necessarily a musical, there's still a story being told and there's still characters to be attached to. I also just think that they have an amazing stage presence, and like as a minstrel, as like a bard, a storyteller, that's something that's, I think, really important, to be able to like connect with your audience, draw your audience in, make them feel the things that you feel. And it's still something that I'm trying to work on, but seeing them just like gives me more ambition to work on those parts of my performance as well. I don't know what a collaboration would look like with them, but as I said for Rebecca Sugar, and with Aurora as well, I'd be happy to do anything, really. It's just like, being with those artists in the room is just what like makes me excited. It's what gives me passion. It's what makes me, it gives me that fire inside to just continue doing my craft. Overall, I still have a long ways to go on this journey, but I'd be very delighted if you could join me. And even if you decide that maybe you're just not interested, or maybe my music just isn't for you, I'm still grateful that you decided to lend an ear anyway. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one, travelers.